Good morning, Idaho. Hope you're having a wonderful morning, afternoon, or evening, depending on when you're listening to this. Welcome to the Local Yokel Idaho podcast, where we talk about what is going on in the wonderful state of Idaho. Welcome to the morning banter. This is just kind of a little bit of a time that's less formal that I talk with you guys before we get into the bulk of the podcast. Granted, it will be rather short today. I don't have a lot to share, but I hope you guys have had a wonderful week. I know this week in the Treasure Valley, we got some snow. Also in eastern Idaho, I saw more school closures, so all the kids over there are probably still very happy. Parents, not so much. At least on the bright side, the snow brings more water for the aquifers and power generation and stuff that's coming up for this next year, especially with the summer. I haven't tried to look and see what the predictions are for like the heat and how hot it's going to get this summer. I'm hoping because we had such a cold winter, we'll have a little bit more of a milder summer. Granted, on the other hand, I'm not, because like my peppers and my corn and the okra and stuff I like to grow here at home, they kind of need some heat. So for me, I don't want it, but my plants that I'm probably going to try to grow this summer and stuff, I'm probably going to want a little bit more heat, which it is that time of year for garden planting and stuff. I need to get on that. I've been putting it off, and it's something I really need to work on. But I know this week for me has been crazy personally, because I just started a part-time job and then trying to do that. And as you can see, podcast episode has come out and you're listening to this, so everything has gone according to plan. Forgive me if there's any rough edges. But part of that is due to the fact that, I had to get a part job here to pay the bills and make ends meet as I go forward with this. And hopefully eventually this will be my main income and you guys can support me and I can continue to do this and just do it full time. But with that said, there were a few tweaks and changes I made to politics. No one really wrote in about anything particularly being bad, but there were just some things that I tweaked and changed a little bit. Like now I'm going to be stating who the sponsor of the bills are and then the state that they're going through and different stuff. And plus adding in some of the failed bills that have kind of failed in their process of going through. It's just a few minor changes. If there's anything you want to share, please do reach out to me. Or if there's some event that you know that's going on in the valley and stuff, I really, 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 I want to continue to encourage that. If there's stuff that you want to have on here that I didn't see or didn't cover or didn't talk about, please reach out and let me know about it, or upcoming events and stuff. Please reach out to me. I'd love to have you let me know, and then I can add it on there, and then I can cover more things and not miss out on stuff that is interesting or important to you guys. But in any case, nice, short, and sweet for the morning banter, and we'll get into the bulk of the podcast here. Moving into holidays and interesting events for the week, we have Monday the 6th of March, which is National Dress Day, Oreo Cookie, and Dentist Day. As for in history, in 1836 at the Battle of the Alamo, the Texas defenders were overwhelmed by 1,500 to 3,000 Mexican soldiers, who killed between 182 to 257 people, including William Travis, Jim Bowie, and Davy Crockett. In 1857, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled that African Americans could not be U.S. citizens. And lastly, in 1899, aspirin was patented by Felix Hoffman. Monday was Michelangelo's and Louis Costello's birthday, and is Shaquille O'Neal's 50th birthday. In deaths in 1836, kind of relating to what we talked about earlier, Davy Crockett died. Tuesday, the 7th of March, is National Cereal and Flapjack Day. As for in history, nothing major, but then moving to birthdays, Tuesday was John Deere's and Charles Dickens' birthday, and is Chris Rock's 58th and Ashton Kutcher's, hopefully I'm saying that right, 45th birthday. As for deaths, in 1938, Harvey S. Firestone died, and in 2019, Frank Robinson died. Moving on to Wednesday, the 8th of March, is National Proofread Day. Hopefully I did that with the script here. As for in history, in 1817, the New York Stock Exchange was founded. In 1948, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled that religious instruction in public schools was unconstitutional. And lastly, in 2014, Flight MH370 with 239 people lost contact and disappeared, causing the most expensive search effort in history. As for birthdays, Wednesday was Oliver Holmes Jr. and Claire Trevor's birthday. As for deaths, in 1874, Millard Fillmore died. In 1917, Ferdinand von Zeppelin died. And in 1930, William Taft died. Thursday, the 9th of March is National Barbie Day and Meatball Day. In 1952, Martin Luther preached his Invokavit sermon in the German city of Wittenberg. In 1776, Adam Smith published The Wealth of Nations. And lastly, in 1959, Barbie made her debut at the American Toy Fair in New York. As for birthdays, Thursday was Yuri Gagarin's birthday, and nothing major in deaths. Moving on to Friday the 10th of March is National Mario Day and Pack Your Lunch Day. As for in history, in 1783, the USS Alliance, under the command of Captain Barry, won the last naval battle of the Revolutionary War off Cape Canaveral. And lastly, in 1876, Alexander Graham Bell had the first telephone call with his assistant Thomas Watson. As for birthdays, Friday was Chuck Norris's 82nd and is Carrie Underwood's 39th birthday. As for deaths, in 37 AD, Tiberius died. Saturday, the 11th of March is National Johnny Appleseed Day. In 2018, the Chinese Communist Party approved the removal of term limits for leaders, thus allowing Xi Jinping to be president for life. In 2020, COVID-19 was declared a pandemic by the World Health Organization. As for birthdays, nothing of note. In deaths, in 1955, Alexander Fleming died, and in 1970, Earl Gardner died. Lastly, we come to Sunday, the 12th of March, which is National Girl Scout Day, Daylight Savings Time, and World Day Against Cyber Censorship. In 1894, Coca-Cola was sold in a bottle for the first time in Vicksburg, Mississippi. And in 1918, Vladimir Lenin moved Russia's capital from Petrograd to Moscow. As for birthdays, nothing of note, but in deaths, in 1955, Charlie Parker died. Starting off events here with the Treasure Valley in performances in Boise Tuesday. There is a National Geographic Live Nature Roaring Back performance at 7 p.m. at the Morrison Center. Also in Boise, but on Sunday, there is an orchestral concert aria from 8:30 p.m. at the Morrison Center. Then also in Boise, most of these are in Boise, Friday to Sunday, there is the 5th Boise Roadsters show at Expo, Idaho. And then Sunday also, there is a dance show at 2 p.m. at BSU Special Event Center at 2 p.m. Then moving to Meridian, Saturday, there is the Idaho Women's Veterans Memorial Car Show fundraiser from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. at Gem Prep. And then moving to Nampa in performances, Sunday, there is the Monster Truck Jam at 1 p.m. at the Ford Idaho Center. In fun events in Boise, Monday, the Discovery Center is getting a new exhibit called the Fans Strike Back, one of the largest Star Wars fan exhibits featuring items from fans around the world. Also in Boise, Saturday, there is a young adults dinner and game night from 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. at Table Rock Church. Then moving to Nampa, next Tuesday, March 14th, there is a homeschool PE event at 9 a.m. at the Harvard Rec Center. Then in Nampa Friday, there's a homeschool swimming event from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. at the Harvard Rec Center. Also continuing with the Nampa theme, the rest of them are that. Saturday, there is a St. Patrick's Day dance at 6:30 p.m. at the Nampa Eagle Lodge. And then Saturday, there is a dodgeball tournament from 7:30 p.m. to 10:30 p.m. at the Harvard Rec Center. In other events, in Boise Wednesday, there is a free Rose virtual class from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. Also in Boise, but Thursday, there is an Ethics Commission meeting at 3:30 p.m. at Boise City Hall. Then also in Boise, there is a grant writing workshop at the Boise Public Library, main library. Check below for dates because they've got a couple different ones. And then in Emmett, Saturday, there is a GEM Community Business Expo from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. at the Emmett High School Gymnasium. For more information on anything's talked about, go check the link in the description below. Moving over into Eastern Idaho in performances in Rupert, Saturday, there's a comedy night at 7:30 p.m. at the Wilson Theater. Jeff Leeson, if I got that right, is the stand-up comedian for the event. In Idaho Falls, Saturday, there is a all-star monster truck tour at 1 p.m. at the Hero Arena at American Center. Also in Idaho Falls, Saturday, there is the 2023 Spring Horticultural Synopsis for new and seasoned gardeners. In Idaho Falls, Saturday, there is the 2023 Spring Horticultural Synopsis for new and seasoned gardeners. Moving on into fun events in Pocatello, Saturday, there is the 12th Annual Brewfest from 1 p.m. to 6 p.m. at 232 West Center Street. Then moving into Blackfoot Saturday, there is a country dance instruction and karaoke night at 7 p.m. at American Legion. In Rexburg Tuesday, there is a Creative Corner event for teens at 4:30 p.m. at City Hall. And then also in Rexburg, then moving to Thursday, there is an intro to watercolor class for adults at 7 p.m. at City Hall. Moving into other events, in Pocatello Wednesday, there is a DIY terrarium class for adults from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. The class is free, but you will need to register. Then moving to Idaho Falls Tuesday, there is a character/drawing class from 2 p.m. to 3 p.m. at the Idaho Falls Public Library. The class is $30 a person. Then in Rexburg, and this is the last one, Tuesday, there is a fencing class from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. at 210 Auxiliary Gym. For more information about anything talked about, go check the link in the description below. Moving more northernly, we come to McCall and Cascade area. Nothing in performances, but in fun events. In McCall, there is a cross-country skiing and snowshoeing at the Meadow Creek Golf Resort from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. For adult day pass, it is $10, and for youth, it is $5. It's going to be until April 30th. Then Thursday to Sunday, there is ice skating open at the Cascade Aquatic and Recreation Center. And then also in Cascade, but Friday, there is a swing dance class from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. It is free for all ages to attend. It will be happening at the Valley Club building, and it will be on country and line dancing. If you have any questions, call Steve at 208-861-8486. In other events, in McCall Monday, there is a free pool day at the Yacht Club from 12 p.m. to closing. Also in McCall Tuesday, there is a Tech Tuesday event from 3:30 p.m. to 5:30 p.m. at the McCall Public Library. They'll be doing 3D printing and have some board games out while they're waiting, because 3D printing can take a little bit. And then lastly, for McCall things, in McCall Tuesday, also there is a trivia night from 5:30 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. at Bumps and Brews. And then lastly, in Cascade Friday, there is bingo at the Senior Center from 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. For more information about anything talked about, go check the link in the description below. Now, moving all the way up to the northerly tip of Idaho here, in performances in Lewiston, there is a Home of Dance performer and fundraiser at 7:30 p.m. to 9 p.m. at Echo Hills Church. Apparently, I have forgotten the date there, so you might want to check when that is. If I remember correctly, that was like a weekend or something. And then in Moscow Tuesday, there is a showing of North by Northwest, a Alfred Hitchcock film at 7 p.m. at the Kenworth Theater. Then moving in Sandpoint Friday, there is a live Bright Moment Jazz from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. at 301 Cedar Street. Also in Sandpoint, then Friday, there is the 2023 Country Dance Series at 7 p.m. at Sandpoint Community Hall. There will be an intro class at 7 p.m. for beginners. It is on the second Friday of each month except for August, so take note of that. In fun events, in Moscow Thursday, there's a pinball tournament from 8 p.m. to 11 p.m. at the Rant and Raves Brewery. Also in Moscow Saturday, there is a Cabin Fever Spin-In event from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. at the Lanton County Fairgrounds. There will be 14 plus vendors with local grown fibers, farm yarn, finishing goods, and many other things. For those interested in knitting and yarn and all those things, just this place for you. Then also in Moscow next Tuesday, there is a T-Birds Book Club meeting at 2 p.m. at the Moscow Library. Then moving back to Sandpoint Wednesday, there is an open mic night at 6 p.m. at 411 Cedar Street. And then also in Sandpoint Thursday, there is a trivia night from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. at the Paddler's Ale House. In other events, just one thing, in Lewiston Wednesday, there is an ebook and audiobook open house from 3:30 p.m. to 4:30 p.m. at the Lewiston Public Library. I didn't have in my notes, but I remember reading this. They're going to be going over some different softwares and stuff so you can make your own ebooks and audiobooks and publish them. For more information on anything talked about, go check the link in the description below. Moving into the news with our first news story here, In-N-Out update. This comes by the Boise Dev by Autumn Robertsons. For all of those ex-Californians, I have a feeling you'll be interested in this story. Last year, news came out that In-N-Out was considering to build 2 locations in the Treasure Valley, one in the Boise Town Square Mall and the other near the Village in Meridian. Well, what's going on with that? As for the first one in Boise, the spot talked about was the vacant Pier 1 import store, which they have gotten a permit to demolish the existing building, but the new one that they're going to put in for the In-N-Out would be about 3,885 square feet, have a drive-through, and would have an indoor indoor seating area for up to 74 guests. According to the Boise dev, once construction gets underway, it would only take 6 months for them to be ready for an opening. As for the one in Meridian, the location they are aiming for is a small dirt area south of the H&M store. According to a spokesperson for the city of Meridian, they have requested more information on final values and contractor information so they can set the correct fee, and once that is done and the fee is paid, the permit will be given. The proposed restaurant would be 3,879 square feet, so a little smaller than the one in Boise, and it would seat about 84 people indoors and 32 outdoors, plus it would also have a drive-thru, and this location would also take 6 months to construct, which I've heard some people that are really, really excited about In-N-Out coming that have tried it or haven't tried it, and they've just heard the stories and stuff. I mean, for me personally, this is my personal opinion, I have never had In-N-Out. I've actually never set foot in the state of California myself, but with that said, I'm not super interested in it. I mean, it sounds like it's something interesting, and I will definitely have to go try it out, and I might eat crow and all that and everything. But I mean, how much more amazing could it be from some of the nice, wonderful, like small mom and pop places that we have here in the Treasure Valley? They make some really, really good burgers. Maybe that's not the gist of it, that it's like, hey, look, In-N-Out. You have In-N-Out, and then you've got Burger King, and then you've got McDonald's and stuff, and then in that fast food world, you know, In-N-Out is just amazing comparatively, and maybe that's the case, and that's a fair point to be made, but I feel like the hype is overblown from some people. It just looks like a burger place, and it can't be that delicious in theory. But then again, you know, I haven't tried it, so I can't say. But, you know, it is cool to see that that's coming to the Valley. That will be a big, big thing. I mean, I could have seen someone back in the day, for those that remember when there wasn't Chick-fil-A here in the Valley, where someone would have been like, oh, it's not that important. Then we got Chick-fil-A, and now, you know, it's just, I love it. I personally am one that really, really enjoys Chick-fil-A. It will be cool to see as that progresses, and I fully intend to go try it and then give you guys a review and opinion on here on the podcast. Who knows, maybe I'll even make a small YouTube video about it and post it on the channel. I'm not sure. We'll see where we're at that point when they finally pull the trigger, but it's cool to see that they'll have 2 locations, so one of them won't get swamped. I know sometimes getting around the Meridian Village is a nightmare because of traffic and stuff, and then having that one in Boise would be a little easier to get. Granted, from what I'm understanding about the location for the Boise one, it's going to be really close to the Chick-fil-A there, and then the Chipotle, and then the Zupas, which those are like 3 of some really, really busy ones in the Valley, and then you put that in there, man, that is going to be a busy area. I mean, not like the mall isn't already kind of busy and stuff. It will be cool to see as things go forward. Next story here, common driving mistakes during the winter. This comes by the East Idaho News by Andrea Olson. So with all the snow, bad weather, and just general heavy winter weather we are having, I thought this article was apt. For those that may not have had a ton of winter driving experience, here are some generally good tips. First is to take time cleaning off your windows. Some of us, including myself, don't like to take the extra time to do it, but do ensure you clean the whole windshield, the rear windshield, and the side windows. In winter, visibility is even lower than normal, so you want to see as much as possible. Plus, there's also a $67 fine for not cleaning the ice and snow off your windshield. So there is a little bit of a reason there for your wallet. Then secondly, make sure your tires are ready for winter. Make sure they have the air in them they need. If you live in an area that gets lots of snow, make sure you have studded tires. Your tires are what give you control on the road, so you want to have them in good shape. And then thirdly and lastly, change your driving accordingly. Do not try to drive like it's summertime. It's winter, there's ice and snow, and generally just worse conditions on the road. Leave with a little extra time. Take it slow and steady. Don't speed. And don't try to brake or turn like you would in the summertime, because your stopping distance won't be the same. Which I know for some people listening on here, including myself, that have just kind of grown up in Idaho and these snowy conditions and stuff, it's just kind of common knowledge and things. I know for myself, driving out in the snow, and I've said it before, I don't have an issue with it. I just take it slow, I take it steady, and it's fine. You just get through it, and it just takes a little longer, and it doesn't stress me out a ton. But I know for some people that I've talked to, snow driving is not the funnest for them. And for other people, it just seems like there's a lot of issues that happen. I would hope and pray throughout the winter season, everyone would kind of get educated and wouldn't have to learn stuff the hard way that's moved here that may have come from an area that doesn't have heavy snow and stuff. But, you know, if you haven't already figured it out, here's some general tips for you. I know the biggest one is that windshield. I can't tell you how many mornings when I'm getting ready for church, which is like usually the earliest I leave the house, I have to be out of here like 7:30 a.m. or 6 a.m. sometimes, that trying to take the time, and I'm like, okay, cool. And I start the car, and even it hasn't de-iced the window, and I'm like, the time and effort and everything it takes to get it ready, I definitely have been lazy a couple times, I will admit, but recently I got a nice scraper and everything, and it's nice. I mean, if you don't have a scraper, I heard this kind of cool tip. It wasn't from someone here in Idaho. It was actually, I was watching a video about this channel. You may have seen their stuff. I can't remember the name. That's about stuff like Midwestern people, that you can take a credit card or a card or something, and that's really great for scraping your windshield if you don't have anything else on hand, or you can't find your scraper in a pinch. That I've done that. It actually works fairly well, as much as it sounds weird and kind of janky, redneck that works here in Idaho. But yeah, do please try to do those precautions. And I thought it was a worthy thing to share on the podcast here for people. Moving on to our third story here, Rigby Barbecue Restaurant opens second store. This comes by the East Idaho News by Rhett Nelson. On a more warm and tasty note, Idaho Falls is getting a new barbecue restaurant from Rigby. Little Mike's Barbecue is going to move into the location where the Pitmaster Barbecue used to be. They have about 2 months to get everything set up before they have to start paying for the property. In that time, they'll get things set up and ready for the grand opening. Little Mike's Barbecue got its start like most do, with a food truck, until they got a permanent place in Rigby. The owner is related to the Firehole Barbecue in West Yellowstone, which was featured on Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dive in 2019. They also earned the award for the best barbecue in Idaho Falls for 2022. So it seems like a pretty cool place. I mean, I haven't been to this because I haven't gone to Rigby a ton, but I do know another barbecue place I really, really like is also in Idaho Falls, if I remember correctly, which is Bullseye Barbecue. I mean, I know I'm kind of like taking over the article here, but Bullseye's Barbecue, I really, really enjoyed. They used to have a location in Hagerman, and it would like be a fun trip when you're from the Treasure Valley, because you could go over to Murphy and drop by the museum over there, which is a really, really cool museum. Highly recommend it. And then you could drive by Strike and then kind of come back over to the freeway and then drive to Hagerman and then have some barbecue and then drive home on the freeway, which made a really nice loop. Now I have to go all the way to Idaho Falls to get barbecue, but it looks like there's two places. So next time I drop by Idaho Falls, there'll be a ton of wonderful choices to choose from. I'm wondering if just the prices of getting restaurants and stuff is really affordable there, if that's what's happening. I wonder why the Pitmaster Barbecue went out. I mean, it should be nice for them because they'll have a lot of the stuff already set up. They're not going to have to entirely, theoretically, retrofit an entire place for barbecue stuff, that it'll just be a similar setup and they got to do some of their own custom changes. You guys will have to let me know. If you guys drop by when they've opened up and stuff, do let me know what you guys think of it, because barbecue is delicious. I love it. I am not vegan by any stretch of the imagination. Please give me the delicious, delicious, delectable meat and protein and fat, which my body desires. Next one is strings attached to Micron buildup. This comes by the Boise Dev by Donde. As some of you may remember, we talked about Micron adding a $15 billion expansion onto the facility they currently have in Boise, and they will be also adding a $10 billion facility in New York State. This is caused in part by the Biden administration passing the CHIPS Act, which sets aside $53 billion for onshore chip manufacturing. With that said, there are some strings attached to the money. The federal government is not cutting a blank check to manufacturers. They are requiring them to, 1, agree to limited expansion in China for a decade. 2, that companies that get more than $150 million in incentives must share a portion of the cash flow with the government. 3, companies asking for more than $150 million are required to provide affordable, high-quality healthcare for both construction workers and employees at the chip factories. 4th, and lastly, they require that the planned construction has to use labor unions in the construction of the factory, but not per se for factory workers. Which, part of these bits and stuff of this article, I'm a little about. I mean, I will admit, some people are totally for unions. It's kind of just a weird thing to me. I understand that they very much had a place in history, and there were times where I've heard that they've done really good, and then other parts where I feel like it kind of stifles innovation and different stuff at times, but I'm not going to get into that whole bit. It is cool to see that the U.S. government is kind of investing money in trying to get more manufacturing done here local, especially in chip manufacturing, and especially great for Idaho with Micron and stuff, which provides a lot of jobs for the area, and glad to see that they're bringing investment back. But part of me is like, cool, you're giving this handout and incentives and stuff to $15 billion, which also doesn't help our inflation in different states, if that's another matter. But you're giving all these handouts, right? And I'm glad it's bringing these facilities and they're wanting to invest and do stuff. But shouldn't we try to make the industry or working in the United States favorable without incentives? Like, what are the main issues here? So yeah, you've got an issue where it's like, well, there's, we could cut certain regulation that may be over needed for construction and fabrication. That, that's probably why they're building stuff over in China and India. I know there's the labor issue, which I don't even begin to understand how we would fix that in the U.S. because the cost to pay for labor in China and India is way cheaper, especially China, because you can basically have slave labor. You can pay them barely minimum wage to do the work that you need them to do. And I don't know how you would compete with that in the U.S., really, in any capacitive way, because, you have to give a certain healthy wage to employees that they can live off of. You can't rip them off. But then on the flip side, I feel like you could correct that a little bit by not having inflation be as bad. So it's like, oh, cool, yeah, we slowed down inflation. So yeah, when you pay someone $15 an hour, that's a lot of money in U.S. currency for them. And so you don't have to have all this minimum wage because the value of the U.S. currency is so great. But that's that. I just go back and forth. I'm glad that they're doing this, and I especially like number one that they're wanting them to agree to not expand in China more and to have that kind of focused more on a pro-American policy. Which, surprisingly, from what I've seen personally, you might have seen something else than I have. That hasn't been the usual doctrine of the United States for a little bit, which is concerning, in my opinion, when you have a totalitarian regime. I am not a fan of China whatsoever. But I'm glad to see this is happening, and we'll see what Micron does with it. In the article, I didn't have it in my notes here, but I remember when I was reading it, that with the expansion that Micron is doing with the facility here in Boise, at least, not the one in New York, but the one here in Boise, they are adding a health care facility, or they're like putting money or funding into one that's being built currently somewhere else in the valley that they would then have a stake or share in or something like that. So it looks like they're already kind of maneuvering and already know about some of this stuff, but I'm glad to see it's not a blank check, because sometimes big industry has a habit of wasting government checks because they didn't have to work for them. But on the other hand, some of the requirements, I don't know, send me a message on Twitter or email me what your thoughts on that might be, if you're thinking that these requirements are great, or if there's different ones that you're like, not quite what I would have liked. Now, this one is our last story. I know we blew through them really fast here, but this is a fun one. Lego store coming to Idaho. This comes by the Boise Dev by Donde. For all the kids in the Treasure Valley and all the geeks out there that love Legos, the Lego group has posted a request for a store manager for a store that would be going into the village. According to the village GM, Lego has signed a lease for a space in the core of the village area. Now, for some, you might be asking, well, what does this mean? Well, as many of you know, you can buy Legos at Walmart and Target, many other local vendors, but the cool part about this is having an official Lego store would in fact allow you to get them straight from them, which is always great when you're talking about buying products and stuff, not getting it through a second vendor. And secondly, this would also bring one of the cool perks that Lego stores had. I didn't know this existed, which is called Pick a Brick, where you have a wall and it's just like a hardware store where you have individual bricks that you can pick different shapes and sizes, and you pay by weight, not by individual part, but by weight. So for all those people, I mean, I'm not really big into Legos. I used to do them a lot more when I was younger, and I've kind of traveled a little further away from them. But I do remember enough to know that there were times that you get these like Lego sets and stuff, and you enjoyed them, and you wouldn't always pay for like the Lego sets, because Lego sets are expensive. Most of the parents out there know what I mean. When you go to Christmas time, you're like, oh, we'll get them a Lego set, and you're like, this is like a small little Lego set, and it's like $20. It's crazy how expensive in that regard. But a lot of my Legos that I, as a kid, we would get from like the thrift store where you have these big like mix bins, or I know you've seen them on like eBay or stuff where you get a mix, and sometimes you're trying to build something and you just need that one specific part. Like, I need it to be that, and it needs to do this, and it needs to fit there, and it needs to be that shape. Well, with having that type of like Lego store here, you could go and get that brick, and it would hopefully be at an affordable cost. I don't know what they're going to be charging for the weight, but you could get a ton of bricks. You're like, okay, I need that, I need this, and this would fit there, and then you can go and then you can buy them in kind of a bulk way, which would be more cheap and affordable. Then sometimes I see people online, and you're like, oh yeah, I'm going to go buy this, and then you go online, it's like, I get it, the shipping and everything else, you're like, $2 for just one little part? That doesn't make any sense. So I think this is really cool to see that they're bringing here. I mean, generally when I'm seeing new stores and stuff coming to the Valley, especially with like In-N-Out, it just shows that we're growing and getting bigger and doing stuff. I mean, I was literally just talking with a friend and they pointed something out that I didn't know. The population of just like the Idaho area is actually a little bigger than Salt Lake City. Boise is bigger than Salt Lake City, but we don't think of it that way. We think of ourselves still small. So I'm glad that we're getting more of this industry and stuff. It just means more competition, more choices for consumers, and generally just getting to try more stuff I think is cool in Idaho. I mean, part of that comes with more population, which most of us don't like. We like it to be rural and stuff. But I mean, thankfully, Idaho, I feel like is big enough that you can kind of move outside of Boise and then you can easily travel in to enjoy all those services and stuff. So win-win, slight detract, to each their own, but I think this is cool, and I think a lot of kids will have a lot of fun, and LEGO will make a lot of money, which is what their objective probably is. Moving into the Quickies, we have our first story here. Idaho Falls Zoo announced opening date for spring. This comes by the East Idaho News by staff. The Idaho Falls Zoo has announced they will be reopening for the 2023 season on April 12th. They have more than 330 individual animals and 130 species from all over the world, plus an aquarium is part of the zoo. Avalanche closes road in Ketchum. This comes by KTVB7 by staff. In Ketchum last Wednesday, an avalanche hit Warm Spring Road in Ketchum. No one was hurt, but crews got the road open last Thursday. With that said, they're still warning people to stay away from that area in general right now due to the high risk of avalanches. Lava Hot Springs Bar collapses. This comes by KTVB7 by staff. Last Wednesday, the Blue Moon Bar and Grill in Lava Hot Springs collapsed around 3:45 p.m. Police were alerted to it by a person calling them that was trapped inside. No one was killed, but one woman had minor injuries. It is unknown as of the writing of the script why the roof collapsed, but they are currently investigating that. This next one's a little bit of a fun one. Idaho man breaks world record for Q-tips in beard. This comes by KTVB7 by Shira Matsuzawa. On a funny note, on February 18th, an Idahoan by the name of Joel Strasser broke the world record for the most Q-tips in a beard. For those interested in how many he put in, it would be 2,470 in his beard. This was recorded by the Guinness World Records, and he has an award for the new record. With that said, this is not his first record. As a kid, he found a copy of the Guinness World Record book from a library and wanted to be in it someday. He now holds 13 world records and is working on another one. Now for our last quickie here, major construction starting soon in Idaho Falls. This comes by the East Idaho News by staff. Heads up for those in Idaho Falls on March 13th. The Woodruff Avenue and 17th Street intersection is scheduled to have construction starting on it. This is to add improvements. The city is encouraging people to use alternate routes while it is being worked on because it will add more traffic to the area while it's being worked on. Into politics, we have it divided into two halves here. First is facts, and then we have discussion. If you just want to hear what's going on, then please listen to the facts. And then if you want to hear my discussion and opinion and kind of picking out specific articles to kind of talk about them a little bit more in bills and stuff, then please stay for the discussion. If you're not interested in that, I understand, but please do listen to the facts to be well informed of what's happening with our local government here. Nothing major in governor-related stuff, but in the House and Senate, we'll start off with bills working their way through the House. H-259, related to elections, amending existing laws to revise provisions regarding to the distribution of absentee ballots, applications, and the insurance of absentee ballots. The sponsor is Representative Kevin Andrus, and the status of it is referred to the State Affairs Committee. H-233, controlling substances, amending existing laws to provide that trafficking in fentanyl is a felony and revise sentences for trafficking offenses. The bill is sponsored by Judy Boyle, and the status of it is read for the first time. Then moving on to H-244, Health, amends existing laws to provide in-person visitation rights for residents in certain facilities and provide that visitations shall not be precluded based on vaccination status. The sponsors of the bill is Representative Julian Young and Senator Carl Burek. Hopefully I got that right. As for the status, it was read for the first time. Then we move on to H-242, Abortion. Adds to and amends existing laws to provide for the crime of abortion trafficking, to provide certain requirements and restrictions on a civil action, and to provide prosecution authority for the Attorney General. The sponsor of the bill is Representative Barbara Ahart and Kevin Anderson. The status is recommended to pass and filed for second reading. Then moving on to H240, Education, amending existing laws to revise provisions regarding election for schoolhouse board trustees. The sponsor of the bill is Representative Douglas T. Pickett, and the status is it was read for the first time. Then House Bill 239, Voting, amends existing laws regarding the unlawfulness of aliens voting in Idaho. The sponsor of the bill is Representative Dale R. Hawkins, and the status is it was read for the first time. House Bill 231, Sexual Exhibition, adds to existing law to provide that certain persons and institutions must take reasonable steps to restrict the access of minors in certain instances, to provide for civil action in certain instances, and to prohibit the use of public facilities and public assets for sexual exhibition. The sponsor of the bill is Senator Ben Tays and Blaine Gonzatti. As for the status, it was read for the first time. Then we move on to House Bill 11, Elections, amending existing laws to provide that no in-person student instruction shall take place in certain election days. The sponsor of this is Representative Greg L. Lanting, Julie Yamato, and Phil McGreen, Secretary of State, and the status is filed for the third reading. Then moving to House Bill 228, Sex Education, amends existing laws to revise definition. Sponsor is Representative Barbara Ahart. The status is it was referred to the Education Committee. Then House Bill 227, Libraries, as to existing laws to require selection and access policies for public libraries and public school libraries. The sponsor of the bill is Representative Jack Nicholson, and the status is it is referred to the Education Committee. Then we come to House Bill 225, related to education, amends existing laws to revise provisions regarding school attendance and to provide for homeschooling. The sponsor is Representative Julie Yamamoto, and the status is it was referred to the Education Committee. Then you have House Bill 205, related to voting, amends existing laws to revise provisions regarding the conditions under which voters may cast an absentee ballot and how a voter may receive an absentee ballot application. The sponsor of the bill is Representative Joe Alfieri and Representative Mike Kingsley. The status of the bill is that it was filed for third reading. Then we come to House Bill 167, Critical Infrastructure Trespassing, adds to existing laws to provide for the crime of critical infrastructure trespass, to provide penalties, to provide exemptions, and to authorize the Attorney General to prosecute certain persons. The sponsor of the bill is Representative Brent Rabel. The status of the bill is that it was filed for third reading. And then lastly, we come to House Bill 199, related to taxes, amending existing laws to provide for taxes associated with electronic smoking products and devices. The sponsor of the bill is Representative Gerald Raymond Brooke Green. The status of the bill is it is referred to the Revenue and Taxation Committee. Then moving on to bills passed this last week. House Bill 82, Idaho Dietary Supplement Act, adds to existing laws to enact the Idaho Dietary Supplement Act, which provides that production, marketing, distribution, sale, and use of dietary supplements that are legal as of July 1st, 2022 in Idaho shall remain legal in Idaho regardless of any changes to federal law or regulation. The sponsor of the bill is Representative Jason Gallagher. As for the vote, the bill passed with a vote of 51-13-6. Then moving on to House Bill 220, School Athletic Events, as to existing laws to require cash be accepted for entry fees to school athletic events. The sponsor of the bill was Charlie Shepard. And as for the vote, the bill passed with a vote of 59-9-2. Next is House Bill 181, related to education, amending existing laws to revise provisions regarding advanced opportunities. The sponsor of the bill is Representative Wendy Horman and Senator Dave Lent. The bill passed with a vote of 65-05. House Bill 182, establishing clauses and free speech compliance, adds to existing laws to establish provisions regarding silent prayer. The bill was sponsored by Brett J. Crane and Barbara Ehart. The bill passed with a vote of 65-1. Then House Bill 180, State Treasury, amends existing laws to provide that idle monies may be invested in physical gold and silver in certain instances. The sponsor of the bill was Representative Barbara Ahart and Senator Phil Hart. The bill passed with a vote of 29-1. Then on to House Bill 207, Appropriation Deficit Warrants related to the appropriation to deficit warranty funds for fiscal year 2023. The sponsor was Matt R. Freena of Budget and Policy Analysis. The bill passed with a vote 70-0. Then House Bill 206, Administrative Rules, amends, repeals, and adds to existing laws to revise provisions regarding the legislative review of administrative rules. The sponsor of the bill was Representative Mike Moyle, and the bill passed with a vote of 59-11-0. Then House Bill 202, related to education, adds to existing laws to provide for the display of the national motto in certain circumstances. The sponsor of the bill is Representative Jeff J. Cornels and Bruce D. Gogg. The bill passed with a vote of 59-11-0. Then House Bill 156, Predator Wildlife, amends existing laws to clarify rattlesnakes as predatory wildlife. The sponsor of the bill was Representative Judy Boyle and Mike Moyle. The bill passed with a vote of 55-14-1. House Bill 144, Fish and Game, amends existing laws to provide for trapping license certificates. The sponsor of the bill was Representative Judy Boyle and Senator Mark Harris. The bill passed with a vote of 69-01. Next is House Bill 143, Fish and Game, amends existing laws to provide for fur buyer licenses and to revise provisions regarding taxidermist and fur buyer licenses. The sponsor of the bill was Representative Judy Boyle and Senator Mark Harris. The bill passed with a vote of 69-01. Then House Bill 168, Employment Security Program, amends existing laws to establish procedures to verify the integrity of employee security program. The sponsor of the bill was Representative Brandon Mitchell. The bill passed with a vote of 69-01. House Bill 112, Education Opportunity Resource Committee, amends existing laws to revise committee members to allow for certain distribution of appropriate monies, to require certain distributions, and to authorize certain fund increases. The sponsor of the bill was Representative Mark Sater and Tracy Bent of the State Board of Education. The bill passed with a vote of 69-01. Then Senate Bill 1041, County Treasury and Tax Collector, as to existing law to authorize county treasury to make certain investments. The sponsor of the bill was Senator Doug Ricks. The bill passed with a vote of 69-01. Then House Bill 162 amends, repeals, and adds to existing laws to revise terminology and other provisions regarding virtual healthcare. The sponsor of the bill was Representative John Vader Woud and Chenely Dixon. The bill passed with a vote of 69-01. And then House Bill 172, Income Taxes, amends session law to change the effective date for the new income tax rates to January 1st, 2023. The sponsor was Representative Jeff Ellers. The bill passed with a vote of 68-1-1. Then House Bill 169, Appropriation of Public Schools Education Services for Deaf and the Blind, relates to the appropriation to the Public School Education Support Programs Division of the Education Service for the Deaf and Blind for the fiscal year of 2023. Sponsor was Jared Tatro, Budget and Policy Analysis. The bill passed with a vote of 68-1-1. House Bill 163, Parental Rights, amending existing laws to provide for certain disclosure and school policies. The sponsors were Representative Judy Boyle and Senator Ben Taves. The bill passed with a vote of 67-3-0. Next up is House Bill 117, Sexual Offenders Registration, amends existing laws to revise a provision released from registration requirements. The sponsor of the bill was Representative Clay Handy. The bill passed with a vote of 69-0-1. Then House Bill Public Assistance amends existing laws to establish provisions regarding work requirements for participants in supplemental nutrition assistant programs. The sponsor of the bill was Representative Kevin Anders. The bill passed with a vote of 57-11-2. Then House Bill 153, Occupational Licensing, adds to existing law to provide for limited licenses for medical school graduates who are not accepted into residency program. The sponsors of the bill are Representative Josh Wheeler and Chenely Dixon. The bill passed with a vote of 67-03. Then House Bill 137, related to elections, amends and repeals existing laws to consolidate presidential primaries with primary elections. The sponsors of the bill is Representative Dustin Manwaring and Senator Mark Harris. The bill passed with a vote of 61-6-3. Then we come to House Bill 119, flood restrictions, amends existing laws to revise provisions regarding flood control district commissions. The sponsor of the bill is Representative John Vader Woud. Bill passed with a vote of 66-1-3. Then we come to House Bill 103, related to recreation, adds to existing laws to provide for the assumption of risk and legal responsibility by recreational participants for injuries associated with recreational activities in state parks. The sponsor of the bill was Representative Jordan Redmond. The bill passed with a vote of 66-2. And then lastly, we come to House Bill 65, related to notices, amends existing laws to revise provisions regarding obsolete websites. The sponsor of the bill was Representative Megan Blanksma. The bill passed with a vote of 67-03. Moving into the Senate and bills working their way through, we first have Senate Bill 1099, related to protections of pupils and parental rights acts. The sponsor of the bill is Senator Ben Taves. It is currently filed for third reading. Then we come to House Bill 116, Consumer Protections. It amends existing laws to revise provisions regarding automatic subscriptions and renewal cancellations. The sponsors of the bill is Representative Charlie Shepard, Senator Julie Van Orden, and Kate Haas. The status of the bill is that it was filed for third reading. Then we come to Senate Bill 1081, related to transportation, amends and adds to existing laws to provide for a restricted driver's license. The sponsor of the bill is Senator Jim Guthrie, and the status of it is that it was read for the third time. Then we come to Senate Bill 1130, related to coronavirus, adds to existing laws to establish Coronavirus Stop Act to prohibit certain actions related to coronavirus. The sponsors of the bill is Senator Ben Adams, Chuck Winder, Todd M. Lakely, and Representative Brett Crane. The status of the bill is that it was read for the first time. Then we come to Senate Bill 1127, State Syllabus, adds to existing laws to designate Orectodromius as the state dinosaur. The sponsor of the bill is Senator Kevin Cook, and it was read for the first time. Then we have Senate Bill 1122, Terrorist Control Act, amends existing laws to provide for the crime of domestic terrorism. The sponsor of the bill is Kelly Arthur Anthon and Senator Majority Leader. The status of it is that it was read for the first time. Then we move on. Senate Bill 1100, related to education, adds to existing laws to establish privacy and safety standards in public schools. The sponsor of the bill is Senator Ben Adams. The status of it is that it was filed for third reading. Then we have House Bill 92, related to education, adds to existing laws to require financial literacy courses in certain grades. The sponsors of the bill is Representative James Petzold, Debbie Critchfield, Superintendent of Public Instruction, and the State Board of State Department of Education. As for the status, it was filed for third reading. Then we have Senate Bill 1042, related to education, amends existing laws to exempt certain public charter schools from having to demonstrate strong academic results to qualify for public school facility programs, and to revise a limitation on issuing bonds under public school charter school facility programs. The sponsor of the bill is Chuck Winder and Senator Lori Denharton. The status of it is that it was filed for third reading. Then we come to House Bill 96, related to energy resources, amends existing laws to provide for the promotion and development of clean energy resources for declared purposes, to revise provisions regarding powers of Idaho Energy Resource Authority, and to provide for clean energy generation projects. The sponsor of the bill is Wendy Horman, and the status of it is that it was filed for third reading. Then we come to Senate Bill 1108, related to tobacco taxes, amends existing laws to provide for a tobacco tax cap to 50 cents per cigar. The sponsors of the bill is Carl J. Bjork, Trege Burnt, and Representative Jordan Redmond. The status of it is that it was filed for third reading. Then we come to the last one here in ones making their way through. We have House Bill 149, related to criminal history records, amends existing laws to provide that criminal history records shall be shielded from disclosure under certain circumstances. The sponsor of the bill is Representative Alana Rubel, Clay Handy, and Senator Dave Lent. The status of the bill is that it was read for the first time. Then moving into bills passed this last week up to Thursday, we have the first one, Senate Bill 1022, Motor Vehicles, amends existing laws to remove provisions regarding violations and compliance. The sponsor of the bill is Senator Todd M. Lakely, and the bill passed with a vote of 35-0-0. Then we have Senate Bill 1092, Uniform Electronics Wills Act, adds to existing laws to provide for the execution of electronic will. The sponsor of the bill is Senator Todd M. Lakely and David Jensen. The bill passed with a vote of 35-0-0. Then we have Senate Bill 1083 related to purchasing of political subdivisions. As stated, amends existing laws to revise provisions regarding procuring services or personal property. The bill passed with a vote of 35-0-0. Apparently, my script is missing the sponsors, so please check that. Sorry about that. Then we come to Senate Bill 1070, Career Technical Centers, amends existing laws to revise provisions regarding certain funding for career technical centers and certain authority of the Division of Career Technical Education. The sponsor of the bill is Senator Den Harting, and the bill passed with a vote of 35-0-0. Then we come to Senate Bill 1063 related to fences, amends existing laws to revise provisions regarding careless exposure of barbed wire and revise penalties. The sponsor of the bill is Senator Mark Harris, and the bill passed with a vote of 25-10-0. Then we come to Senate Bill 1085, Outfitters and Guides, amends existing laws to revise provisions regarding outfitters and guide licenses. The sponsor of the bill is Tim Frost. The bill passed with a vote of 34-0-1. Then there is Senate Bill 1033 related to irrigation, adds to existing law to provide for the appropriation of groundwater for supplemental irrigation use. The sponsor of the bill is Senator Van T. Burtonshaw. The bill passed with a vote of 35-0-0. Then Senate Bill 1032 related to water management account, amends existing laws to revise provisions regarding expenditures to provide for the selection of projects and to revise provisions regarding loans and grants. The sponsor of the bill is Senator Van T. Burtonshaw. The bill passed with 35-0-0. Then Senate Bill 1078 related to voters, amends and adds to existing laws to provide for a voter's guide with candidate information to be prepared by the Secretary of State. Here again, it looks like I've missed the sponsors. The bill was passed with a vote of 24-11-0. Then Senate Bill 1048 related to elections, amends existing laws to provide an exemption from post-election audits for select ballots. The sponsor of the bill was Senator Trege Berndt and Phil McGrain, Secretary of State. The bill passed with a vote of 35-0-0. Then we come to House Bill 11 related to elections, amending existing laws to revise provisions regarding the use of private monies for the purpose of election administration. Here again, I seem to have missed the sponsors. There's apparently going to be a couple of those. The bill passed with a vote of 35-0-0. Then Senate Bill 1043 related to charter schools, repeals and adds to existing laws to remove public charter schools debt reserve fund and to provide for a revolving loan fund. The sponsor of the bill is Senator Lori Den Harting and Chuck Winder. The bill passed with a vote of 35-0-0. Then there is the Senate Joint Resolution referring to referment and initiatives, purposes a state constitutional amendment to require any referendum petition or initiative petition to be signed by at least 6% of the legal voters at the last general election in each legislative district. The sponsors are Senator Doug O. Kunovich, I probably got that wrong, and Representative Braden Mitchell. The bill passed with a vote of 27-8-0. Then we come to House Bill 57 related to transportation, amends existing laws to provide for the insurance of special placards together with disabled veteran license plates. The sponsor of the bill is Representative Jake Nelson. The bill passed with a vote of 33-0-2. And then lastly, we come to our last one here in bills passed. We come to House Bill 23 related to occupational and professional licenses, amends existing laws to replace references to the Division of Building Safety with Division of Occupation and Professional Licenses. The sponsor of the bill is Representative Kevin Andrus, and the bill passed with a vote of 32-0-3. In bills failed, we just have two here. The first one is Senate Bill 1025 related to marriage, amends and repeals existing laws to revise certain requirements regarding marriage. The sponsor of the bill was Senate Scott Herndon and Representative Rod Furness and Senator Mark Harris. The bill failed with a vote of 16-17-2. Then we come to the last bill that failed, which is Senate Bill 1038 related to education. Adds to existing law to provide for education savings accounts. The sponsor of the bill was Senator Tammy Nichols and Senator Brian Lenny. The bill failed with a vote of 12-23-0. Moving into the discussion section of politics, nothing with governor, so there's no need to talk on that. But moving into House matters, I have a couple bills that I kind of pulled out that I wanted to talk about. The first one was House Bill 244 related to health, which amends existing laws to provide in-person visitation rights for residents in certain facilities and provide visitations shall not be precluded based on vaccination status. The sponsor of this was Representative Julian Young and Senator Carl Bjork. And of the writing of this script, the status of the bill is that it was read for the first time in the House. For those curious, as I was kind of reading through the general bit up there, usually the process, as best as I understand it, I could be totally wrong, but when it comes to House stuff and Senate stuff, is that there's first, second, third reading, and then there's committee-related stuff. So not exactly in that order. I kind of messed it up a little bit. But what happens, you have a bill, it gets introduced or whatever. I can't tell if it gets read first or it goes to committee first, but suffice to say, it has to go through committee related to the topic it's related to. And then in committee, you get different professionals that get to work on it, and then you get other people from the public that can voice their concerns, frustrations, or agreement with the bill or whatever's going on. And then the committee has to decide if it wants to approve it or not. If it does get approved and recommended, there's a couple different things committee can do. And then it'll go into the House or Senate, whichever it's coming from, and then it'll get read 3 times, I think, correctly, or I can't remember if it gets read 1 and then it goes into committee or whatever. I don't have full order understood, but suffice to say, it at least gets read 2 times, and then the third time, then the third time it's put to a vote, and then it gets decided upon. If it passes, then it has to go to the other corresponding one. So if it's in the Senate, it's got to go to the House. If it's in the House, then it has to go to the Senate, and then they vote yes on it. Then it can go to the governor for signing. So point in case, hopefully that kind of like wraps up a little bit of what all that stuff is talking about, the status and stuff, and it makes a little bit more sense. I know it was very, very overviewed, and those that are a little bit more nerdy about politics may be like, that's not how it's exactly done. I'm like, yes, I know, and I'm also learning, so there's definitely areas where I'm going to probably make mistakes, so please reach out to me and let me know so I can learn. But with that said, with this House 244 bill, or 244, I mainly wanted to pick it out and talk about it briefly. I went and read through the bill. Most of these I read through. There's a couple I glanced over because the bill was like a page long. But this one I did go read through. A lot of it is a bunch of different like stuff that they're saying, okay, this is what healthcare places can do. This is what they can't do, blah, 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 blah. But the main part I'm interested in is the vaccination status, that this law would make it illegal for different medical institutions, especially within I think nursing homes is what this is tailored at. I could be wrong. But what I can see is like nursing homes and stuff, that they can't preclude them based on their vaccination status, which I think is a great thing. And at the end of the day, that you want to take care of them. I know there's probably going to be some medical people out there that are going to be like, hey, Tyler, we should be able to divide based on that vaccination status, because if they come into the nursing home and they're not vaccinated for something, then we've got a problem, and they might spread it around and different stuff. And I think that's a fair argument. But on the other hand, I think you've seen places that have far overreached where there's decent concerns and people are making medical decided choices about what they want to do with their body. And then these institutions are like, well, you can make that choice, but that doesn't mean we get to serve you, which I don't think we should discriminate or choose upon. And that's not good at all. But I'm glad this is kind of coming down the pipeline. It will be interesting to see how it implements. I might be totally wrong because my understanding of the medical industry is not huge, but I do agree, especially for myself with the vaccine related stuff, that I shouldn't be forced to take it, and I should still be able to get service based on if I have or haven't, and it's not any of your business and different stuff. But I might not be understanding this completely in the realm of the medical world because I'm not in it. I'm not a nurse. I didn't go to medical school. So it would be interesting if someone wants to reach out and share why this would be bad or why it would be good, then I could talk about that or refer to that in a future podcast. And then moving on to like the next one here that I wanted to talk about. Let's see here. I got I've got that one, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, I got 5 for the Senate and then a couple for the House. The next one is related to the abortion one. If you were listening, you kind of noticed that. House Bill 242 or 242 related to abortion adds to and amends existing laws to provide for the crime of an abortion trafficking, to provide certain requirements and restrictions on civil action, and to provide prosecute authority for Attorney General. Now, I really would like to read the bill, but I'm not going to go into it just for the sake of time. The podcast is getting rather long as I'm watching the editing here. But in general, what it's going over is that in the state of Idaho, that's the key thing that I remember reading in there that kind of jumped out to me, is that in the state of Idaho, if you're trying to transport and move someone around for the purposes of getting them somewhere else where it may be easier to get an abortion or something in the state, I stress the state, then it is considered a crime. Now, as for outside the state, if someone's trying to travel someone outside the state, that law would not affect that. Granted, the one exception I could see in here, and talking with a couple people when I was kind of going back and forth with some friends about this bill, is that if a minor is being taken outside the state without the permission of the parents, be it for abortion or for whatever, that would be considered kidnapping, and they could be caught and prosecuted on that. Not as much the abortion, but in the minor sense. So if you're not a minor, then you could totally go outside the state and get an abortion or whatever, if that is your prerogative. But making it a crime to try to move people within the state and to help them getting an abortion in the state of Idaho, which I personally think is a good thing, that that baby that is in the mother's womb is a living human being and it has a right to life. The woman that got pregnant needs to be responsible and understanding of what they did. They had intercourse as an adult, hopefully consenting, maybe not. That's where it gets a little gray. And you got pregnant. Now from there, what do? Well, I would argue it's a human life and it deserves to live. And that is the amazing beauty of, conception that we can't even fully comprehend and understand that God has amazingly blessed us with. But we have many, many other ways. If you can't support the child or you can't handle it, that's where we have orphanages. It's something that has existed far, far, far longer than abortion has, and it is a means to be able to take care of those children with unplanned pregnancies where the parents, maybe they do want to keep the child and they really don't like abortion, but they can't support it. Well, then that's where adoption occurs. There are so many parents in this country that I've heard and seen the numbers that would love to have a kid to raise and to take care of, but they can't have their own, and that's where adoption places come in. And I think that's, what you should do. Do not. That is a human life, and it is sacred, and in my belief as a Christian, it is made in the image of God, and to do that is to transgress God. Now, with that said, this bill also comes with a bit of some teeth. You're welcome to read it, and I would recommend it. One of those teeth is that there is prison time involved. I can't remember the exact number off the top of my head, but it also has a fine of $20,000 if caught in the act of doing it, or I think up to $20,000 the person can be fined for it in court, which is not zesty. So like any bill, you got to give it a little bit of teeth so it can be a little sharp and dig in and fight against some of the stuff. Then moving into the next House bill I wanted to talk about, which is Bill 239 or 239, related to voting, amends existing laws regarding the unlawfulness of aliens voting in Idaho. The sponsor of the bill is Representative Dale R. Hawkins, and it was read for the first time as the status that I have on here. As the title says, and the bill is just a page long, it's very short. This is the very short one I was talking about. It basically just puts it down in writing saying if you're not a citizen, so you're an alien in the United States, you're not a citizen of the United States, it is considered a misdemeanor if you vote in an election here in Idaho, which I think is a good thing and a great thing to strengthen our elections. I will admit, in Idaho, above all of those states, and just kind of watching the previous election stuff, our voting stuff seems to be pretty secure, and the amount of fraud or different issues that have come up, even if you're someone that says, there's no election fraud or something, there's always little issues. We're human. You have to understand at a base value as humans, we make errors, we make issues, be it intentional or unintentional. And so it's good to have laws and to approve and try to get better at not having those issues and to not having those errors occur. So with that said, coming back to the voting, I think it's glad that we're doing this, mainly for the fact that those that are not citizens, they're not part of this country, they have no vested interests, that they have an allegiance to a different country, that come here, they don't have a right to then vote and change the nature of how our country moves and it acts. Now, some might say, well, what about democracy, the representation of all people? Yeah, that is the definition, generally, I could be off there, of democracy. Well, that's where I think it's an interesting discussion. I had this on Twitter, and some of you may have seen it, that the United States is not a pure democracy. And we're not a pure republic. We're a representative democracy. Now, if you want to go look that up, I would highly recommend it. But what that means is that we are in a democracy as so much as every citizen has a voice to affect the course of our country and elect those representatives, like a republic, that then represent them in politics, that they vest that interest and authority into. A republic would be where everyone, no matter what, that's in the country gets to vote, and a republic would be where you have like these lineage, as best as I understand, I could be off, where you have these lineages of families that represent certain areas that then go represent that area in a Senate, for lack of a better word, and then vote on things. But our founding fathers decided to take the best of both worlds, and that's why we have a representative republic or democracy. I'm getting my terms now kind of scrambled up. I should have taken some notes. But any case, we're not a full-on democracy. So if we were, then this bill probably would be wrong. But according to our founding documents, we are not a full-on democracy, and thus only citizens should be allowed to vote. And I'm glad they're putting this bill in place to kind of secure that. If you're interested, please read it like any of these. The next one is a little bit of a hot topic one, and then the last two are just kind of some fun ones. This one is House Bill 231, related to sexual exhibition, which adds to existing law to provide that certain persons and institutions may take reasonable steps to restrict the access of minors in certain instances, to provide a civil action in certain instances, and to prohibit the use of public facilities and public assets for sexual exhibition. The sponsor of the bill is Senator Ben Taze, hopefully I got that right, and Blaine Gonzatti. The status of it as of recording is that it was read for the first time. There again, this one, I would love to read the bill. And if you're someone who's passionate about this topic, please, 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 I'm begging you, go read it. I'm going to do my best, and I may have some things wrong, but I really, really, really encourage you, if there's something you care about and it's a big topic for you, please read it. With that said, this bill does not ban sexual events, drag show events, or LGBTQ stuff. It does not. Those events can still happen. But what it does ban and state is that minors cannot attend and see them. If you're over the age of 18, then you can go to those events and see them and be exposed to that. But it purely is stating, for the best of my understanding, that minors cannot attend and see them. If caught, or in the event that the minor does it, or if someone helps them, that's another clause in there, that if someone helps them get in there, there are fines and penalties. With that said, they did give it some pretty serious teeth. The fines can get up to $10,000 is, I think, the cap they put there. I don't remember seeing if there was any prison time when I was reading through. I didn't remember seeing anything, but there may be some jail time or different prison stuff. I don't remember for those that help or assist in the act, which I think this is a great thing. As much as, say you're a libertarian and you're on the other side of the aisle. I get it. You want less regulation. Don't tell me what I can and can't do. I get that. But I would appeal to you that we should make it where it's like, okay, yes, when you're 18, when you're considered a legal adult, fine. Go ahead. You want to go to a strip club? You want to go to a drag show? You want to go to an LGBTQ thing? Go for it. Awesome. You want to go to an event that's about sexuality? Go for it. Because now you are at the age that you're allowed to engage in sexually related things. But until then, we should not. Your brain is still developing. Those things have a huge effect on you. We've seen that more and more with studies coming about porn and the effect it has on your mind, and especially in the developmental stage. And so all the more reason this should be limited just by age, just like with alcohol or different things, that if you want to be exposed to these ideas and stuff, then fine. You can do it as a grown adult, but as a minor, you're still developing, you're still getting ideas, and you're not ready to make decisions and not ready to be exposed to stuff like that. So I'm glad this is coming into being. I look forward, if anyone wants to reach out and let me know what they think about it, please do. I would love to have a discussion on it if you disagree with me, or if you'd agree, we can go back and forth on it. And then moving on to the next kind of two ones. The next two fun ones, we have House Bill 182, establishing clause and free speech compliance, adds to existing law to establish provisions regarding silent prayer. This one passed in the House. It's still, I think, working its way through the Senate. It got a vote of 65-4-1. When I say that, the first number is in favor, the middle number is against, and the last one is those that are absent. That might be because they weren't there, or it might be because of the fact that they don't want their name to be on the record. Some guys will do that, I've heard. The first part of this bill refers to the Kennedy versus Bremerton. I think that's what it is. Bremerton. Forgive me, I'm bad at names. School District Supreme Court case where the school suspended him for having silent prayers with his players, but then he turned around and fought it, which he has now won, which has set a precedent, which Idaho in this bill states that they're trying to get ahead of the horse. Even in the bill, they say that. By trying to pass a bill that affirms the Supreme Court's rule. That way there isn't a gray area in the future. That is the primary juxtapose of this, just saying, hey, you cannot discriminate if someone wants to have prayer and those people then engage in it willingly. That you can't prevent that. You can't fire him. You can't take career or legal things against him, and a school cannot. Basically just affirming free speech at its finest order, in my opinion. I think it's a great thing, even if you're someone who's not a Christian, even if you're someone who's on the different side of things. I think we should encourage allowing people that prayer does not hurt people. If a person wants to pray and they are willing to have other people join them and those people willingly join, I see no threat to well-being of other people. This isn't an idea that creates social unrest or untrust. I see no issue with it, and we should be able to allow people to have that. And so I'm glad this law is being put in place. It's a little bit of just kind of getting ahead of the horse. Nothing like this has happened in Idaho. I think the bill kind of touches on that a little bit. But just kind of get ahead of it so it's a written and law thing, so it's easier for the courts and for anyone or school that may be tempted to do such a thing in the future. And then this last one's kind of the fun one. House Bill 156, Predator Wildlife, amends existing laws to classify rattlesnakes as a predatory wildlife. Why was this not already a thing? Also, the funny part about this is that if you look at the bill and the votes that it got in the House, there were 55 in favor, 14 against. Who's against that? I mean, I don't get why there would be a problem. It's a predator. Yes, a snake is a form of predator. It's one of the main things when you go hiking in Idaho, you're trying to be careful not to run into, which would define it as a predator or some form of lethality. I don't quite get why there would be people opposed to that. I mean, maybe it's some more naturalist-leaning people and individuals that have issues with then how that might affect their protection and different stuff. But a rattlesnake is a type of predatory wildlife. I mean, if you read in its finest form, it amends existing laws to classify rattlesnakes as predatory wildlife. I just thought it was funny, and I don't have a lot of discussionary elements on it, but I just wanted to point it out. One, the hilariousness of it, that 14 people would vote against it. Maybe I'm missing something. If I am, forgive me. Please, send me a message in and we'll talk about it next week. But I just thought it was funny why one that isn't already the case, that they're classified as a predatory wildlife, and this even had to be a bill that was voted on, if you know what I mean. Then moving into kind of Senate matters, we have our first Senate bill. This is Senate Bill 1081 on transportation. Amends and adds to existing laws to provide for restricted driver's license. As best as I understand, I'm just going to skim over this real quick. From what I've heard and what I read generally, because this one I skimmed, forgive me, it wasn't a high priority on my list this week with having part-time work and stuff. But from the best of my understanding, it would allow those that are legal aliens that have moved here to Idaho to have a restricted driver license so they could drive, but it would still be not a full driver's license, which I take issue with there again. If you're not a citizen and you're in the United States and you don't have a license in any other country, because usually it's best to understand that's how it works, that if I have a driver's license and I'm from England and I come here, the U.S. might be like, well, you have a driver's license and we recognize England's driver's license as being good enough so you can use it here in the U.S. But if you come from another country and you don't have a driver's license and you need a driver's license and you're not a citizen of the United States, then that doesn't mean you can get a license in the United States because you're not a citizen. How can you get a license for a country you're not in? You're not a citizen of. If you want to partake, and the only reason you need driver's license primarily is if you're trying to work and stuff, I would assume. You're trying to then live here. And if you're trying to live here, that means you need to get your citizenship. Not be an illegal alien. You need to become a citizen. So I would be against this, really. Become a citizen, get your full license. Go the full legal way. Do not be an illegal alien if you're living here in the United States. That's just, I guess, my take on it. Next one is kind of the fun one I wanted to point out. You have the Senate Bill 1127 state syllabus adds to existing laws to designate name ORYCTODROMEUS as state dinosaur. I thought we already had one. I thought it was like a horse or something, if I remember when I was reading the Idaho Blue Book, but maybe they're trying to change it. I'm not sure why. I kind of just glanced over this. This one I'm not going to spend a huge time discussing, but I just thought I'd make sure to mention it in the discussion and give it a little time because I thought it was cool and funny to see. Politics isn't all about, big hot button topic issues or sometimes boring tax regulation or different stuff, but there's fun, interesting things that sometimes work their way through. The next one is House Bill 92 related to education, adds to existing laws to require financial literacy courses in certain grades. This is sponsored by a whole ton of people. You're more than welcome to go look at it. I already talked about who is sponsoring it and stuff, but I like the sound of this. The House is trying to pass a bill that requires financial literacy in certain grades. Now, if you're asking what that would be, that would include recognizing the influence of money on human behaviors, learning about various types of bank accounts, evaluating various investment options and calculating net worth, learning about various types of credit and how credit rating is determined, understanding the essentials of financing a college education, evaluating different types of insurance associated with independent living, recognizing the purpose of the tax system, how it relates to each citizen and the citizen's income, and then lastly, building a budget for independent living and recognizing and utilizing modern consumer skills, tools, and practices, which those are stuff I just kind of grabbed out of the bill. That is the whole list of what that course would require, which I'm surprised we don't already have. I mean, it's kind of a funny joke, I feel like, that exists on the internet and people joke about that school didn't prepare you for anything in life. Sometimes it feels like from public school. As homeschool, I'm not in that world, but I've heard many of a person joke about it. They're like, cool, I can do algebra, but can I file my taxes? I have no idea. Can I do this? Can I do that? No. I thought you were supposed to be preparing me for life. And then the school's like, So I'm really glad they're adding this, that more people can understand how their money works, well understood things, because sadly, not every parent teaches their children this stuff. I know my parents have been loving and generous that they have made sure to teach me and to understand how to handle money wisely and how to budget, do these things, but I met a lot of people that do not know how to do this, so I'm glad that they're adding this, and I really wish this was here sooner. That's just the take I have on it there. In any case, really quick blow through. I'm sorry that I didn't get into a ton of detail in the discussion, stay on things, but this week has been a blur, and I'm kind of on crunch to get the podcast out, so that's the last of the podcast of the political discussion, and we'll move on to the closing here. If I missed something, got something wrong, or you have some advice for the show, then send me an email at localyocalidaho2022@gmail.com or tweet me at localyocalidaho on Twitter. This is a one-man show, so I can't afford to go over everything, but I hope I was able to cover as many things as possible. Thank you for your help and support. That's all for now, and I hope you have an excellent rest of your week. Godspeed.